Christening new beginnings. Last year's Sydney Hobart line honours winners and their 2020 contender. Formerly Maserati, now Willow, thanks to a new software sponsorship. Smaller than their old champion Comanche.
Well, we had a fantastic time with Comanche, and there's no doubt it's just, one of the greatest boats in the world.
With COVID keeping international crew offshore, this year they're welcoming local faces on board. But still, it's a family affair. Son James back alongside brother Douglas. This, his first race to Hobart.
I'm mostly in the pit grinding with Kai Hurst.
I know we're both first timers, so it's going to be an experience for sure.
Right now there are 75 yachts set to take part in the race this year, and despite all of the hard work and preparation these crews put in, they know ultimately their fate lies with the weather.
Anything could happen.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Well, welcome to a special edition of Willow World. I'm here at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia in Sydney, my hometown, on a beautiful summer's day. And I'm joined here by Jim Cooney. Hi Jim.
Josh, how you going?
Very well, thank you. Well, it's a special day today. Tell us about what we're seeing behind us.
Well, we're really excited, Josh. We've just had the naming ceremony for this wonderful boat, which is now called Willow. And we're really happy to be involved with you guys to carry this name all the way from Sydney to Hobart in the race in 10 days time now, so it's all mounting up on us pretty quickly. So we've just had the Australian media scrum here to see the unveiling of the boat, to the christening of it, and to wish it well on its way.
Well, I want to thank Jim, because it's an amazing privilege for Willow to be involved in such an amazing race, Jim, and a great craft that we're seeing here. Tell us a little bit about the boat and the technology that you have on this boat.
Sure. Okay, well this Willow is a Volvo 70, a Volvo Ocean 70, so it was built for the Volvo Around the World race. It's 70 feet long, built entirely of carbon. Pretty much everything you see is carbon, including the sails and the mast. So built to minimise weight but maximise strength. And the boat it competed in the Around the World race as Ericsson 3 was its name then, but obviously now has a fresh new coat of paint and a fresh new name. So it's a 70 foot long boat. She weighs about 13 tonnes. Around about half of that is in the keel, in a lead bulb on the keel, about 7 tonnes worth. And that's the keel moves from side to side to help balance the boat. So as the wind begins to strengthen and the boat leans over, we swing the keel out from side to side to level the boat up, as well as putting all of our 14 crew on the rail. So the boat's built for pretty much anything the Southern Ocean can throw at it. It's a very strong boat, and yet, as I say, very light. It will perform quite well. The race coming up, we would hope to be close to the front. There's 200-footer boats in the race.
Yes.
We should be the next boat behind that, all things being equal. So we'll certainly aim for a podium finish in the actual race, and then handicap honours. So the overall win on handicap is a different matter. We'll be a reasonable contender if we get the right conditions. So fingers crossed.
Well, Jim's very humble because he actually was awarded line honours last year, obviously on a different craft. For those of you that are dialing in or watching this from North America, Jim, the Sydney to Hobart, what is it? What kind of race is it? Why is it iconic in Australia?
Well, it's one of the 2 or 3 big ocean races around the world. Josh, it's 620 miles, 628 miles, through a fairly treacherous passage of water. The Bass Strait can be very nasty and very ugly and very windy. So the challenge is not so much in the length. We've done longer races. Last year we won the Transpac in Comanche, which is that's 2,500 miles. It's quite a bit longer than Hobart, but not as significant in terms of the conditions. So the Sydney to Hobart is one of the big ocean races. The Fastnet is another one, and those are probably attract big fleets of yachts that are people that are keen to test themselves and their boat and their crews. It's like climbing a mountain.
Right.
People keep doing it. And it's different, unlike a mountain, I guess. This is, there are different conditions every year. There's a different fleet every year. So every year it really is a different race. So it's a different race for us this year. Last year we won the race in Comanche.
Yes.
This year we'd like to be close to the front in Willow.
Well, let's talk about this year, because this year, as we've said, the word unprecedented has been used a lot, because we're a once in a 100 year, I should say, pandemic. What are the things that are different for you this year in terms of what you've had to do to pull this off with your crew and the different parts of 2020?
Well, it certainly has affected our preparation. as well as our crew makeup. We've had trouble getting some of the materials we need. Some of the metals that we use, particularly in the keel, and some of the hardware on deck are quite specialist materials, and they've been just generally in shorter supply than they have been in previous years. So we've had a long wait, or we've had to compromise on the material that we use. We certainly don't have every one of the crew that I would normally have. A lot of our guys are European residents or Americans, and so clearly they aren't able to travel this year. And even some of our Aussie crew have been stranded overseas, so they're not back. But nevertheless, we've filled in the blanks with a lot of really experienced Volvo ocean racers. We've got people like Stu, who's been 8 times around the world in a Volvo boat, and 5 other very seasoned Volvo ocean racers. So I'm very confident in the crew. But everything has been a little bit delayed, so our preparation has been quite condensed, really into the last month or so, whereas ideally we would have been doing this for 3 months.
Yes. We've been talking this year in our Willow World series about leadership and about leading through a crisis, and I had the privilege of being on this boat just before the pandemic hit, when we had to close our office and the city was shut pretty much, and like a lot of you today that are watching, you'd be going through shutdowns, close downs, not able to do what you would normally do. We're privileged here in Sydney to be moving forward. Jim, I think there's a lot of analogies we could draw from being on a crew and a yacht and waves, but what would be some of the lessons that you've learned from sailing in terms of leadership that maybe are helpful for the younger people that are viewing today, or people that are going through difficult times?
Well, I think that for me the number one lesson in managing a successful ocean racing crew is that you can't focus on hierarchy. There's clearly a hierarchy, and ultimately decisions have to be made by the skipper, and if it's a safety affecting decision, then it can only fall to the skipper. But so there's a hierarchy in place. But once you get the boat moving in its actual operation, what you really have to pay attention to, and what we've learned, is what I call the pecking order rather than the hierarchy. So who's at the front of the pecking order at any one time? And the most important person on the boat mostly won't be the skipper. It could be the bowman who's attaching a line. It could be the trimmer who's trying to get the most out of the boat. There'll be a different person at every point in the race that's actually the most important person in the crew and the one that we depend on the most. So you have to get into your mind that put the hierarchy aside, focus on who's the most important right now. The same in your organisation. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's Dale, but mostly the time it's not. It's somebody else that's more important than you in terms of what you have to deliver, and take the same approach in a boat.
And it's a great point, Jim. So getting behind and supporting that person that might be right at the very top of the yacht there in the middle of a really big sea, and making sure that the whole crew are supporting that moment and that person, and not so worried about titles and roles and so on and so forth. What a great lesson that is. In terms of Willow, just turning to Willow, Jim, it's a great privilege to have you as a board member, director and a shareholder. What drew you to Willow?
Josh, without doubt it was the freshness of the technology, the approach that here's all this data, and I can relate it directly to what happens on the boat here, but seeing the recognition that here's all this data sitting there that nobody's listening to, that we really could be making use of. We could be maximising our efficiency, we could be reducing waste, we can save money, we can make things more efficient, all the great things we know that digital twins can do. And it's very similar on a boat like this, because we've got all manner of sensors around the boat that record. There's load cells in the forestays, in the backstays, in the winch pots. There's all the information coming out of the engine and the engine management system. There's the angle of the keel, there's the angle of the wind, there's the boat speed. So many different bits of data that are all recorded on board, but then we have to pull it apart bit by bit to learn lessons from it. If that could be aggregated by something clever and then available via the cloud sort of instantly, what a transformation that would be to running a boat. So seeing what Willow does with the built environment, with physical infrastructure, and knowing what we're kind of missing in this sport, I was attracted to it immediately.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have your experience on our board, and also the experience you've had in renewables and other sectors that we are looking to expand into. Well, that wraps up today. It's really grateful that we've been able to share with you these Willow Worlds this year. Please tune in to the next edition of Willow World in 2021. Thanks for tuning into Willow World. You can watch all our past editions on Willow's Vimeo page. Visit our website for more information about how you can know your world.